Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, how do you go from zero to one of the top wine bloggers on the planet? We'll find out next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team. And the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I thought I had a cool job. Wait till you meet my next guest, Melanie Ofenloch. She gets to travel and sample wine for a living. I want your job. How do you get that gig?
You taste a lot of wine, you write a lot of columns, and you do it for 11 years.
Wow. Okay, well, she has a very successful consulting company called Ofenloch Consulting as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about your wine blog. It's called Dallas Wine Chick, and I would love to hear the early days.
Absolutely. I was working for a marketing firm back in the day, a large conglomerate, and social media started coming, was coming into play. And I realized if I didn't pivot and I didn't learn it, that I was going to end up one of those executives that people wondered what in the heck I did. And so I got on Twitter. I was a very generic Melanie Zero. I talked about marketing. The people that followed me were the 43 people that worked for me, and there's nothing social about that. So I started talking about wine, and it was a passion of mine and a love. And I told my husband that when I hit a certain amount of followers on Twitter that I'd start a blog. And that was over 11 years ago.
Wow. And you truly are one of the top wine bloggers on the planet. You said 51?
Yes.
And that's based on a ranking system?
Yes. There's a million ranking systems out there, but I've consecutively kind of been at that level in all of them. So
that's fascinating. Okay, favorite trip that you've taken so far?
A wine press trip or a trip with my family?
Well, either that has to do with wine.
Okay. I went to Tuscany with my husband for our anniversary trip, one of the big anniversaries.
Very cool.
And we stayed at a lovely winery and just drove around the region and had a wonderful time.
Wow. And are you pinching yourself the whole time? Saying, I get to do this?
Yes. I have no idea. I have no credibility. I mean, I have technically no accreditations. I have nothing that would make me an expert on wine, but that's not what I'm trying to be.
Wow. Well, it's very inspiring. And you've been featured on Channel 8. We're going to put that up on the screen so you can talk about that. I love the title, No Wine Snobs Allowed. So, I mean, what is the truth about wine? Because I get intimidated. I mean, I really don't know my different wines. I know red and white. So I get intimidated by people who know a lot about wine.
It's just fun to try. A good wine is one that you like. A bad wine is one that you don't. And that's just the basic premise. And that's what you should walk in. There's a number of great people that can help you at restaurants and wine stores. And don't be afraid to ask for help because they love that. That's what they're paid to do.
So you can truly say that you've tasted like a $10 bottle of wine that tastes as good as the $1,000 bottle.
I've tasted very good $10 bottles of wine.
Yes.
I haven't had that many $1,000 bottles of wine. I would say there's a difference, but that doesn't make one, I wouldn't gauge it that way because that's not fair.
Absolutely. And you're doing a lot of virtual wine tastings. Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen so you can talk about that. Tell us about virtual wine tasting.
Oh, gosh. The important thing about the virtual wine tasting for me as a writer is that I want an experience with the winemaker. I want a story. And it's been really amazing to me how fast people and wineries have adapted to that. Because wine is not known for being a technology savvy industry in the past. and they've had to make that switch and that move.
Yes.
And I think they've done a really good job. But probably this year, I can't tell you how many I've been on, 50, 60 in 2020, and probably 10 so far in 2021, maybe more.
Wow. And I know that I saw on the web that wine sales have gone through the roof during
Yes.
the pandemic, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, was that related to stress, or what do you think that was?
That's hard. I think people couldn't leave. And I think that wine definitely made things a little bit easier. I think that wineries got a little better about not having the $50 case shipping
Yes.
on top of what you buy, which makes it easier. I think people, because of the pandemic and because of the fires and the things going on in the wine industry, decided that, hey, we have to step in, like with restaurants, right? If you don't support them, they're not going to be around when everything comes back to normal.
And I'm hearing great things about Texas wines. I know when Texas really started to get into the wine business, Californians would laugh, but not anymore, right?
Yeah. Texas has grown by leaps and bounds in terms of its quality and the stuff that they're making. And there are more women winemakers now, and it's really expanding. I'm excited about what's going on.
That's very cool. Well, let's talk about your consulting business, because you work with a wide range of clients. You were recently named acting CMO
Yes.
of a very large company. Tell us more about that.
Yes. Back in, I guess about 4 years ago, I decided that corporate life was no longer for me. I had a young daughter, not so young anymore, but I felt like being on airplanes all the time, I was missing key parts of her life. And I didn't want to do that. So I decided that the consulting was going to be the path for me. And I haven't looked back since. I've had some amazing clients from the very, very beginning. And Icon was a new client last year that came on, and I've been their acting CMO for, about 17 months now.
And then you were telling me off camera, I don't want to bust you on camera, but it was supposed to be a temporary hit.
It was. But it was right before the pandemic hit. And, as marketers, we had to pivot because everything went from trade shows and things that you would traditionally do to a virtual world.
Yes.
So I have an amazing team that just rolled up their sleeves and jumped in, and we did a great job this year.
Well, I know another one of your passions is encouraging the next generation of women leaders. Talk about that.
You have to serve by example, and you have to give people opportunity, especially with a 15-year-old daughter. I want and expect the women of the world to do the same for her. So I need to step in and do that now. And that's been something that has been part of who I am since I started out.
And are you hopeful? I mean, one of the headlines that I read was that the pandemic was hard on women. In many cases, they're having to make a choice between work and their family. Is that what you're experiencing in the marketplace?
Yes, I've seen that so many times and heard so many stories, and I think companies are struggling with how they can support women the way that they need to, so they can keep them in the workforce.
Yes, because
the last thing we need is an excess of that.
Well, you're very successful and you do so many things. I don't know how you have enough hours in the day. We only have about a minute left. Your camera is there on the right. What would you like to say to let's say the female entrepreneur who's watching this, who needs some encouragement right now?
You can do it. Roll up your sleeves, ask for help, and make it happen, because you'll do it.
Wow. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so inspiring. So we're going to end with her website, which is dallaswinechick.com. Melanie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.